you and I were together, and there were these people with sticks, and they were burning our legs. And Henley and my daughter and I have a very almost identical birthmark on the beside and on the back of our left leg. And based on what the scholars say birthmarks look like and how we can connect them to past lives and how we died, mine and hers look like it is a burn mark. So I had noticed that, but I hadn't believed it. But when she told me this, I got chills, covered in chills. So I called my friend Jamal, who was a metaphysical coach, and I said, Jamal, what do I do with this information? I feel like I've entered a totally different dimension.
Wherever you are in the world, welcome back to Enthusiastically Spiritual Podcast. I'm your host, Teresa. So diving in deep into your soul, you may feel a calling to share your life, your gifts, and to be of service. This actually may happen through, birthing a book. My guest today is the perfect person to share some spiritual insights on this subject and how to experience life-changing breakthroughs along the way. Her name is Meg Calvin, and she is a writing and marketing coach who helps writers do the deep spiritual work to create their Amazon best-selling book. After 15 plus years of serving as a mainline Protestant minister in curriculum writing and building nonprofit volunteer teams, Meg began to serve others as a conference presenter, coach for fellow ministers, and published author herself. During this time, she noticed how many religious people would never publish their healing and helping books because they were held back by their own Christian indoctrinations around marketing, self-trust, money, and, believe it or not, pleasure, the bliss many experience when they write. This broke Meg's heart, and she set out to coach her fellow spiritually attuned go-getters in marketing and selling their best-selling books on Amazon and building a sustainable author brand. While she's a master and loves the games of organic social media marketing and writing, her area of genius is helping writers break through those deep subconscious blocks that hinder them in all parts of their life. Her clients don't only birth books, they birth life-transforming breakthroughs. Yep. Since 2020, she's had the pleasure of serving 32 writers from all across the theological spectrum with her intuitive gifts and at times unconventional creative practices on their path to building the brands and or becoming a best-selling author. Welcome, Meg.
Thank you, Teresa. We're going to have some fun today serving your listeners. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, serving the listeners. So yeah, I have a lot of people that come on that birth books. And so it's a big thing going on right now in the world. And let's talk a bit about why are there so many people right now wanting to share through books?
Oh, this is so, I love this question. The shift that's occurring, I'm hearing it has different labels. The label that that feels the most home to me is the age of Aquarius, or there's this divine feminine, as you know, that is coming in, has been coming in for the past few years, and it's causing a beautiful dynamic, messy, organic, fluid uproar. And it's what and what I mean by uproar is intuition is taking over and moving slower, taking a slower pace. A desire for that is taking over. And how do I word this? I'm moving differently as an extrovert and pausing a little bit before I say this next part. I've noticed a shift in people wanting to make an authentic human connection before they make a monetary value exchange to learn from someone. And so we are lonelier than ever as a society here in America. I'll speak for where I am. And so instead of content, we want to read of someone's real experience from the trenches. And so that's a great opportunity for instead of us, and now thanks to self-publishing, this answer is like all over the place. I am so sorry.
It's all good, Meg. It's all good.
Oh my goodness. Um,
Well, it's interesting. So I'll just piggyback all that with the fact that what I notice with the guests that come on and that share their books, and the people that I know outside of my guests that have written books and have published, is the resonance of vibration that's so unique to each and every one of us, and how that comes through so beautifully with especially all these spiritual books, or even Christian books, right? Christian, spiritual, metaphysical,
yes.
whatever that aspect is. There's thousands of them, but there's 8 billion people on the planet that are searching and looking, and they're going to resonate with certain people. And so it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful time to be alive and to have this aspect of sharing your gifts, sharing your journey, sharing, and sharing it through a book.
Yes. Yes. Okay, here is a very concise answer to what you asked me 5 hours ago, and then I took 4.5 to ramble through. Why are there more books right now being published? Meg's answer, Meg's observations would be, it is easier than ever to self-publish a book, 100%. But there's a deeper, there's a deeper reason under that why people are rushing to the opportunity to self-publish. And my opinion of that would be, while some could take this to the extreme, I feel, and whether it's the divine, beautiful divine feminine rising up, I feel there are less people waiting for permission to fully honor and express that which wants to come through them. And because I know the frequency of your listener, because I feel like I am your ideal target market, and I know how hard I work and how much I surrender to be aligned in my frequency. Because I know the frequency of your listener, I can say that's a really good thing that less people are waiting for permission to just honor that which wants to come through them and create it.
So on your path to doing what you do now and helping people, market, helping people come together with their book and their ideas, and putting it all in a beautiful package that will actually become a bestseller and sell. How did you get to this point where this is exactly what you want to do? Because you obviously came through, the religious aspect and being a preacher and etc. So share a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now, Meg.
Yes, 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 yes. So as you shared in the intro, was a full-time minister, began preaching at 13. My grandparents were missionaries, so they would, God did, the divine did wonderful things, but I was basically a show pony. And they would take me to churches and conferences, and I would preach and I would sing. And I did that till I was 32. Before that, in second grade, I had the most amazing teacher, Mr. Spriggs, and for show and tell, he would let me write stories and write jokes. And he told my mom, he cast this vision for my life. He manifested, he spoke over me. And at that time, I really needed that kind of support and love in my little young heart. He said, your daughter's going to be a comedian. Her words, the things she writes are so funny. And so writing has always been a source of great pleasure for me. My first book got picked up in 2017. And that, as a book does and can do, it opened the door for what I wanted it to open the door for, speaking opportunities and what you already said. And I began coaching ministers. So what happened after that first book was other, not just ministers, but I would call them overly committed Christians, recovering holy rollers, those that were very, like me, seeped in religion, like indoctrinated beyond all belief. And they would come to me and they would whisper, almost confess, that they too had a book idea. And like you said in the intro, it broke my heart. I lost sleep over these amazing ideas weren't being published, weren't serving others because of their religious background, training, upbringing, and a limiting beliefs that brought. It was holding them back. That which once was their greatest virtue in their ministry was now their biggest stumbling block to this amazing book. So I began coaching 2020, as you already said, in 2020. So that was the road that took me there. And this is just, this download is coming to me, so I'm going to say it because it's hitting me on the head.
Mhm.
I am very fortunate to have an amazing coach myself, and my eyes were opened in that, from that experience, in being told that we hear all the time, there's a huge chance that what our soul came to learn, our soul came to teach. And that's so beautiful and equipping when we rise above hard things and traumatic things. It's beautiful. And that was helpful. And I knew that. But what my coach added to that was, I'm not going to say it as well, but those tasks that bring us the most pleasure and might seem common sense, or it comes really easily to us, there might be a zone of genius there. There might be some magic there. And formatting nonfiction books and memoirs, what I share with my clients, I had a client recently tell me, you make it all so easy. And so I surrendered to that part too.
Mhm. So, like you mentioned with the Christianity, and other people obviously have blocks. They've got concepts
Mhm.
around not being heard, or what if I write something? Because I'm writing a book too, which we're going to
Yes.
talk about later on after we're off the air here. But and when I was writing it, I started putting in some personal stuff, and it was like a process. And then I went, as I was going through the manuscript. Then I took out certain areas and added in a gentler. But it was like I went through a process. Do you
Mm.
see people doing that with their books, and like really diving in deep to like getting this on the paper? And then I'm not going to put that in there because that's not really, doesn't need to be. It was my personal that I was putting in there.
Mm. Mhm. Yes, 100% a process. And I've I've experienced and see it in clients as well. The first draft, sometimes we write it just to believe it ourselves.
Mm.
And so there definitely, while I spend a lot of time getting intuitively connected with the book, I have the belief that there are three entities involved in the book birthing process. There's the author, myself, partner, and coach. And then the book itself has divine energy. And sometimes the three of us will come to an impasse. and,
Mhm.
and so we spend so while I intuitively create a template for the writer to follow, that template, of course, will be dynamic, and we might change things up, as we most likely will, as we go. But there's a starting place. I think, though, as you said, you wrote some things that are personal, and then you went back and changed it. Was part of the question knowing when to share something personal?
Yeah, well, it felt for me like you said, like I needed to get that down, and it was the
Mm.
first draft. And
Mhm.
then when I went back, and it didn't even feel right when I went back reading it and going, "Oh, that's not what I want to put out for people." Like, it
Yeah.
was too much of my stuff in there. So it was, but
Mm.
like you said, it was something that I put down on the first draft, and then the second time it came back, I'm like, no, 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 no. Let's take this out and replace it with that, or made a gentler version of it, or just didn't need to even have it in there. So.
Yes, yes, that is so wise. It's so wise. And what's coming up for me, as you shared, was when we're checking in on, when the clients are checking in on, do I want to share this personal thing, this personal part of my life? My book keeps And they're very sure the book keeps tugging at them or nudging them to write it. I have the three ways to check in if it does belong in the book. And that is there, first and foremost, is there a lesson for the reader that's on theme with the book, whether it is a memoir or nonfiction? Number two, have you done work yourself, deep healing work, to become at peace with it yourself? And what I mean by that is, we're always, not with all wounds, but even after a wound has become a scar, we most likely will revisit it from time to time and get to be reminded to love that part of ourself. But we've taken steps to heal it. And what I mean, what I mean by, are you at peace with that part of your life, if there is an energy of a frequency of revenge, that and so just being clear, knowing that the energy of the author stays in the book forever. And 20
Mhm.
years from now, someone will be reading it and they will feel my frequency or your frequency, your energy when you wrote it. So I wanted to be clear. This sounds very vengeful on page 22. Is that what I intend for my reader to feel? Or I am taking the place of victim in this chapter. Is that what I want the reader to feel? So checking in on, am I at peace with it? Am I at peace with the story, how it affected me that moment, and the frequency of it, how the reader could read it. And then I can't remember the third step, but yeah.
So this is part of what you call the birthing life transforming breakthroughs as
Yes.
an author goes through this process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, Meg, when people want to work with you, I mean, there's obviously a process, but they're to a point of like, I'm really ready to do this
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm just thinking about it. So what would you say to a listener out there who's like, really feeling this urge to want to write something, or there's something in them that wants to get out, and what's the process of that, especially with you and what you do with your clients?
You are right. By the time they come to me and we're on an exploration call, if they are maybe considering writing a book, I don't really know, then I will say, it was so nice to meet you. We're not going to waste each other's time. But if they hop on and they are 100% committed to serving people with their book, and it's been whispering for 5 to 7 years, and all these other synchronicities are lining up for them, I'm seeing a need in the world for my book. People have always told me I should write a book, like they're speaking of why now is the right time. I'm an empty nester, like all the stars are aligning, and they're 100% committed, and I can feel it in their frequency that they're not just, I don't know if I want to do a podcast or a book. They're 100% committed. They want to write a book. Then we go from there. And so it's a 6 to 12. I'm going to pause because I know I can ramble. It's my greatest virtue, my greatest vice, too much content all the time. do you want to hear the 5 steps that I do
Mhm.
with my clients?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Definitely.
perfect. I'll just say the bullet points. I will not read the paragraph blurbs in my mind underneath the bullet points. So it's a 6 to 12 month package, depending on how fast the writer wants to sprint toward their goal. So it's called the Prosperous Writers package. How writers birth their author brand and Amazon best-selling book in 6 to 12 months, the 5 steps. And the first one is we transcend any limiting filters about money, marketing, their identity, their time, their talent, their ideal audience, whatever. We transcend, and that will be continual, but we get to it pretty quickly because it comes up pretty quickly. And then we uproot the causes of writer's block, because I have yet, and I just connected with my 34th author on Monday. So, in 34 authors I've served in the past 3 years, I have never seen a block happen because there was a lack of talent or a lack of a good idea or even a lack of time. The real blocks come from these deep subconscious stories that are running. And so we get to do deep meditation together, journaling exercises, unconventional things like dancing while we're on the Zoom together, going on a field trip on the phone together, watching Dolly Parton documentaries, unconventional steps to break through those deep limiting beliefs that are at a subconscious level and either remove those stories or rewrite them. And so that's number one. And number two is we tune into the book. As I shared, there are 3 parties involved. So we get to get clear on what is the exact genre this book wants to be in. Because I do work with I work with lots of coaches and consultants. And so they could make a lead magnet that is a strictly nonfiction teachable resource, but they could also do a lead magnet that's a memoir with a greatly crafted introduction that is building their email list 10 years from now, and it's a memoir. So we get clear on the genre. I love making books holistic, quirky, weird experiences. And so we get clear on that part as well, and the ideal audience member. Then we write the book. And by that, we get to get clear on what's the writer's personality type, learning style, ideal environment to write in. Do they write best morning, afternoon, evening? Do they write best once a week, daily, or once a month? Are they a binge writer? And then we create a word count goal that holds them accountable to that schedule. And then my team, I'm so thankful for my team under me. We, Amazon KDP, we self-publish the book as we guarantee Amazon bestseller status. So all the fun stuff that's not very sexy but has to happen, like ISBN numbers. We need 2 of them if you want to live off Amazon. Copyright stuff, formatting, font, cover design, all that fun. Everything we do is a partnership with the author. Amazon keyword research. And then the 5th step is we market the book. So the author in those 6 to 12 months builds their brand and gets crystal clear on their offer, their messaging, gets a totally online presence facelift with Instagram and both Facebook pages, professional and business, their website, learns how to pitch themselves to podcast. And last 2 sentences I'll say, my goal is the principles that I teach my clients, no matter what happens to social media 5 years from now, whatever the next big new trendy thing is that we're all told to get on as business owners, the principles that my clients learn from me will still apply regardless of platform. And that the work we do now makes them a happier, sustainable author 10 years from now.
Wow, that's an awesome process for sure. So,
Thanks.
and this is obviously it's very spiritual, and you're obviously a very spiritual person. So I want to go back a little bit more about you, Meg. So
Okay.
how did you break off from religion and go more spiritual, or what is your the aspect of how you're working and moving through the world these days?
That's so good. That's so good. Okay. I'm telling myself, she doesn't need to know about you always loving the church as a child. But I was always drawn to the church as a child. That's all I'll say. And
Yeah.
and at the same time, in seminary, I was always thinking this is only part of the story. This is only part of the story. There's more. There's so much more. And I was always attracted to psychic mediums in the metaphysical world, but I was too afraid. I was living from a place of appeasing and impressing the loud Christian mentors in my life and my congregation. So I wouldn't touch it at all. But I was always drawn to it. Always. In I'll keep this short. In 2019, my second book was coming out, and there was a chapter on sexuality and body image and purity culture and shame that can cause in some churches. And I was playing it very safe in that chapter. But a month before we went to print, the editor asked me, is there anything you want to change? And of course, the book started talking. And it wanted me to not hold back in the sexuality chapter. And I was being called to write something that the story I was telling myself was I would lose respect from Christian mentors and other pastors. So I was at that time hosting a podcast, and we had a guest on, modern day mystic, and he said, listen to your dreams. Your ancestors speak in your dreams. And I thought, and I, again, always been attracted to the idea of psychic dreams, the idea of messages from the divine in dreams. But as a Methodist, we don't talk about that spiritual gift at all. We didn't when I was one. So I thought, okay, whatever, I won't listen to it. Well, then the next day, I flipped these around. That was the second day. The first day, I was listening to a podcast and met, this is when I got connected to a spiritual coach of mine. And now I work for her, the Reverend Dr. Katie Valentine, the metaphysical Christian. I'm her closer, or her enrollment coach. Don't want to sound too businessy, but I'm her closer. And I heard her on a podcast, and she said, listen to your dreams. Past lives come up in your dreams to teach you things. And so do your ancestors. And again, was working at a church, did not believe in past lives, but at the same time, there was this deep inner knowing that they are, I believe to be true. They are true. My soul has been here before. And all that I knew about my ancestors was in Scotland, mid 1700s, there was a couple, my great great grandparents, the McNames, they were burned at the stake for writing Protestant literature that rocked the boat. So Catholics burned them alive. And my grandmother told me that wonderful story when I was a 16-year-old, starting to apply for college to become a pastor. So all that to say, I went to bed that night after hearing these two podcasts. My 4-year-old daughter came down the hall the next morning and she was rubbing her eyes. And as we know from dream interpretation, what matters a lot is how you feel after you wake up from the dream. And she wasn't afraid. And she said, "Mom, I had the weirdest dream." And me being me, I said, "Tell me all about it."
Of
And
course you did.
yeah, exactly. And I checked in, like, did she have red color? Like, what's that dye that causes nightmares? The red color or whatever. Um, or did she have sugar? Like, no, she shouldn't. Was she stressed? It wasn't any of those kind of dreams. So I just listened and she said, "You and I were together and there were these people with sticks and they were burning our legs." And Henley and my daughter and I have a very almost identical birthmark on the beside and on the back of our left leg. And based on what the scholars say birthmarks look like and how we can connect them to past lives and how we died, mine and hers look like it is a burn mark. So I had noticed that, but I hadn't believed it. But when she told me this, I got chills, covered in chills. So I called my friend Jamal, who was a metaphysical coach, and I said, "Jamal, what do I do with this information? I feel like I've entered a totally different dimension. And I feel like the podcast and my daughter were speaking directly to me." And then without missing a beat, he said, "Meg, you're not going to be burned this time. Change the book." And so I changed the book. Everything felt aligned and like home to me. And then I called Jamal back and I said, what's my next step? I said it again. I feel like I'm in a new dimension. And he says, "Just speak the words that I'm open. I'm open for whatever you have for me." And that opened the door to the metaphysical world. I left the church a month later, and I'd already known 6 months ago I was leaving the church. I started taking classes from Katie on, I was very drawn to tarot reading, as we say, that aren't professionals at it. I started taking tarot classes, dove deep into reincarnation and regressions, and met one of my spirit guides. The others came later. And yeah, and now the most favorite part of my job in helping people birth their best-selling book is the one-on-one sessions where my intuitive gifts serve my clients and get me in tune with their book. That was so long-winded. I apologize, but that's what opened the door for me.
Well, that would do it for sure, Meg.
Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing story. I mean, I just love it because like when you talked about earlier about when I asked you about people's books and why there's so many right now and how we're looking at, connecting with one another at a deeper level. I love documentaries. So like hearing your story and hearing how how you found really, more about who you really are as a soul, right? Because I mean, we're all, no matter if you're Christian, if you're not Christian, it doesn't matter. We're a soul in a physical body. But but how are you like moving through and how are you, like as if we're all in a movie, right? Like a movie script.
Yes.
What's the movie look like now? Okay, so for 32 or well, obviously probably more than that of your years, you worked with the Christian aspect and the religious aspect, which that's totally fine. And then you moved to this one, and it's all just a path. I mean, it's just a journey, right?
Yes. Yes. And it served me so well because, like you said in the intro, my clients have been all over the theological spectrum. So when it serves them, for me, as Paul says in the New Testament, when it serves to be Roman, I'm Roman. When it serves to be Jew, I'm a Jew. I have a fire and brimstone pastor on the right with a heart of gold, and I have a boudoir photographer who dabbles in Buddhism on the far left. And I speak their language. Whatever serves them, I speak it, as long as the story is helping them toward their goal.
Without a doubt, with that. And so, I mean, that's being versatile, right? Definitely.
That's the goal.
So let's talk a little bit about, you have a podcast.
Oh, not anymore. I still leave it up for lead for it to serve people like free value up front. But yes, I
Yeah.
did.
Okay, you did have a podcast. Okay, so because now you're really busy with what you're doing currently, and so that's really the main focus.
Yes, yes, and I'm along with one-on-one coaching, I'm getting ready to offer a master class, so an evergreen course. People can, how do I outline my memoir or how do I outline my nonfiction book? And so those will be, and then a longer one, which will be everything I offer except the coaching aspect. And it'll be how do I birth an Amazon best-selling book in just a course form. So that's exciting in the months ahead.
Yeah, that is super exciting because this is obviously it's a big need right now to help people support them and getting their words on paper, getting it on the Amazon and being on the bestseller list and getting the message out to the masses because that's what I think
Mhm.
we're all here to do and the right people will connect with the right authors along the way. So it's been so fun today having you on, Meg.
Oh, thank you. Ditto, ditto.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about, I mean, I'm obviously going to have all your stuff in the show notes, but share a little bit about how people can connect with you and your offering.
Yes. So find me on Facebook, Meg Calvin, and Instagram at Hey Meg Calvin, and TikTok, Meg Calvin. And then if your listeners want a free training, how 3 ways to make marketing your book more fun and less frustrating, they can go to megcalvin.com and just grab that free training. And I will say, the principles taught in that video apply to anything you're marketing. If it's an online course, if it is essential oils, whatever you're marketing, these 3 principles will work for you.
Thanks for Meg for coming on today and sharing her gifts of helping support people in really getting their words out on paper and on Amazon and marketing their books. So I hope there were some gems in there for you in the regards of really kind of understanding more about getting your essence and getting your vibration out into the world. Meg's got some beautiful insights on using her intuition and guiding people in that way. So if you are looking for marketing and bringing your book forth from maybe even from like the beginning stages of planting that seed all the way to marketing it on Amazon, Meg is your girl. So you can check her out and I'll have all the show notes down, all the links in the show note for you to check out. And so thanks again for listening to another episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. And I want to share that if there's any questions that come to mind about this podcast, about some of the guests that come on, about anything spiritual that you may want to ask me, you can check out Pod Inbox. The link is in the show notes, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. There's also a way you can support this show through Pod Inbox, so you can check that out also. And until next week, just remember that life is too short to not be enthusiastic about your unique journey.